Turn the clock back a few days to the Convention Centre in Atlantic City. Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker defending his WBC World Welterweight title for the 4th time against the Scotsman Gary Jacobs. It's probably typical of Jacobs that he elected to try to become a world champion the hard way. No easy opponent, no home venue. Whittaker may be 31, but he's one of boxing's world stars, and Jacobs started a big outsider. They piped Jacobs to the ring, the fighting Scotsman, 46 fights, 41 victories so far, but going out to face his moment of truth. A southpaw who's been consistently underrated, but he knows he had to pull off one of the biggest upsets of all time. In a tough division, a win surely would have put him into the big money, but surely a huge jump up in class from the European Championship level where he's fought before. Barry, one wonders if he really knew what he was letting himself in for against this man, Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker, 35 wins in 37 starts.
Well, he's always had his sights firmly fixed on Whittaker, or one of the better champions, and he's always said that the Whittaker was the one he wanted to go for him. And, you know, I'll go one further than Glenn. I'll say that Whittaker is probably one of the best fighters of all time, and not
really?
just around at the moment. There are only 4 of the elite that have won the 4 titles, and we've got Duran, Hearns, Leonard, and now Whittaker. And I think this guy is a superb fighter and an extremely difficult man to beat. And I think it's going to be an extremely difficult struggle for Jacobs.
Thank you, Barry. Let's hear from our Master of Ceremonies, Michael Buffer.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, by way of Bally's Park Place Hotel and Casino on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey, let's get ready to rumble! 12 rounds of boxing for the WBC Welterweight Championship of the World. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner, wearing purple trimmed with gold and black, and weighing in at 147 pounds. He comes to us from Glasgow, Scotland, with a professional record of 41 victories, 23 by KO, against 5 defeats. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the #1 ranked challenger in the world, Gary Kid Jacobs. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing the black, trimmed with red, and weighing in also at 147 pounds. This 1984 Olympic gold medal champion is one of only 4 fighters in boxing history to win 4 titles in 4 weight divisions. And he's considered by many to be, pound for pound, the best in the world today. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting from Norfolk, Virginia, the 4-time champion of the world and reigning welterweight champion of the world, Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker.
Just the chief second. Just the chief second. Pete and the chief second. Gentlemen, I've given you the rules of the World Boxing Council. I remind you now, there is no standing 8 count. If either fighter is in trouble and you do not want me to stop this bout, you must show me clearly that you can and want to continue. If you score a knockdown, be careful with the follow-up punches. Do not hit a man on the deck or you risk disqualification. On the champion's trunks, I'm calling this low here. On the challenger's trunks, he's wearing them quite high. Right on this mark, I'm considering low. Do you understand? No matter what happens, obey my commands. Good luck to you both.
So we're all set in Atlantic City, the place where Lloyd Honeyghan came and caused one of the biggest boxing upsets of all time in beating Don Curry back in 1986. Can Gary Jacobs of Scotland pull off an upset of that magnitude here against one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker? 2 of them southpaws, Jacobs in the purple trunks here, and Whittaker, who's held 6 world championships at 4 different weights. It's an awesome record. He's only lost once in his life, and if you ask me, he didn't lose that fight either against Jose Luis Ramirez. So there you go. But it's a mountainous task, this, isn't it, for Jacobs?
It certainly is. And already you see the fabulous speed of Pernell Whittaker. Very fast, relies on his speed, fast hands, fast feet. A tremendous, very highly accomplished fighter.
tactics for Jacobs really must be, as he said often enough in the build-up to this fight, to make Whittaker work for 3 minutes of every round, put him under the kind of pressure that no one has ever managed to put him under before, and just hope that somehow he can break the rhythm of this man with such dazzling skills.
Yes, Jacobs is really, he's got to keep the pressure on him. He can't give him any room, because when Whittaker has any sort of room, he can do amazing things. He has tremendous punches. They come from all angles. A very skillful fighter.
You'll notice Jacobs boxing with the Star of David on his shorts. He's Britain's only Jewish fighter. One of the greats had that Star of David, Ted Kid Lewis, many, many years ago. World champion of British origin. One thing about Jacobs is, though, he's very competent, he's very tough, doesn't usually do a lot wrong, does he, Glenn?
He doesn't. He's worked very hard for this fight. He's a good fighter. As you say, he's got a decent chin, only that shock knockout loss to Mickey Hughes. Other than that, he's got a very good chin. And really, he's just got to take the fight to Whittaker. He hasn't got to give him any room, and he's just got to be constant pressure.
Good right hand, that, from Jacobs.
Yes, already he's landed a couple of times well with the jab. So if he can get to the jab, he can get to Whittaker.
And that's good stuff again from Jacobs, getting close enough to land. That's always a problem with Whittaker, who can be so elusive and so slippery. He's the kind you couldn't hit with a bag of rice sometimes. But he's standing there in front of Jacobs here. Surprised by that, Glenn?
Yes, maybe he's underestimating Jacobs a little bit. Maybe he feels Jacobs is a soft touch. I think the American press, a lot of the bookmakers have thought that, and I think they would be making a big mistake if they thought Jacobs couldn't fight.
Oh, to end round one, and an evenish kind of round. Well, Gary Jacobs has waited 2 years for this chance. He wanted especially to take on Whittaker, who he holds in the highest esteem, but he believes that he can beat him. And what an amazing breakthrough it would be for Jacobs if he were to pull this off. He started pretty well, Glenn.
Yes, that was a good first round for him, a level sort of round, but he did manage to land with his southpaw jab, so I think that's encouraging.
Another encouraging point for Jacobs may be that Whittaker has been on the floor in his last 2 fights against James Buddy McGirt and Julio Cesar Vasquez. That was when Whittaker moved up to light middleweight to take the WBA crown, his 4th world championship in terms of different weight classes. The trouble is, every time you do put Whittaker on the floor, he gets up again and dominates.
That's right, he's a very skillful boxer. And moving up to light middle, he had the advantage of the speed, and he really, he was just too much for Vasquez.
Good countering right from Whittaker.
But the tactics here of Whittaker to stand and really stand in front of Jacobs and have a bit of a fight could suit Jacobs. He's a rough, he's tough, he's trained very hard for this fight, and he's landing with the jab well. You saw him do it again there. So this is good for Jacobs if Whittaker carries on doing this.
Yes, at the moment, it's almost as if Whittaker is fighting Jacobs' kind of fight. I thought he might be on his bike dancing a bit more than this.
Yes, I think that's what I would have expected him to do. Maybe this is tactics early. Maybe he's just going to test the chin of Jacobs early on, and then he's going to revert to his normal boxing style. But it's a good thing for Jacobs if Whittaker carries on doing this.
There's always been something of the showman in Whittaker. Even at the press conferences prior to this fight, he's been saying, I want you all to watch me and say, wow.
Oh, he really believes he is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He has a great deal of confidence.
Good hand speed Whittaker sharp with that jab, but he's not been able to quite find the range with that left hand. That was just a slip by Whittaker. No count.
I would like to see Jacobs take a little bit more advantage here when Whittaker is standing in front of him and he's trying to have a fight. I'd like to see Jacobs use a little bit more bullion tactics.
Gary Jacobs has made a very, very good start here, considering he began as an 8-1 underdog with some of the bookmakers along the boardwalk here in Atlantic City.
And the third round I give is Jacobs' round. That was a very good. He pushed the fight. And I got the feeling in the Whittaker corner between rounds, they weren't very happy with their man. They want to see him getting back to his old stuff, moving about a little bit, throwing some combinations. I think they just sensed that Jacobs was just getting a bit of confidence and just on to walk forward, throwing good punches.
Whittaker, who's trained by Ronnie Shields and fights out of the famous Dover camp in the United States. He was one of the big stars of the 1984 Olympic Games, an Olympics which produced Evander Holyfield, though he didn't win gold. Tyrell Biggs, Mark Breland, Virgil Hill, and others.
Work your way out. Keep him up, Gary. Stop punching. Step back to him. Work your way out.
Well, I'm impressed with Jacobs' work so far. He looks as if he's trained very hard and he's working well on the inside. His jab looks very sharp. He's doubling it up.
It's a good right hand, that, from Gary Jacobs. And I think Whittaker may just be starting to realize that this is not quite the formality some might have imagined.
Well, Jacobs has worked very hard for this fight, and he's promised that he was going to give it everything. And so far, he's doing just that.
As Jacobs has been working up in Mike Tyson territory, up in the Catskill Mountains. He says of Whittaker, he's not a Ray Leonard or a Duran. Whatever he's done hasn't been great. He's stolen fights, he's run away. He's not been great.
That wasn't a bad right hand there from Whittaker.
That's good work again inside by Jacobs.
Stop punching. Step back, please. Okay, box.
Yes, he's managing to draw Whittaker into a little bit of a fight, and that's suiting Jacobs.
Stop punching. Step back.
Last few seconds of the round, Jacobs just switching to orthodox for a second, right at the end of the round.
Go ahead and get an inside with this guy, all right? Fight with this guy now. Back his ass up there. All right, now. Anytime you're on the outside, keep using the good jab, all right? Keep doubling that good jab. The double jab is working perfect. Now double jab, then bring the left hand behind it.
Ronnie Shields doing the talking.
As soon as you get inside, start touching this guy in the body, all right? You don't have to go all hard shots. Just keep your hands moving, and then walk around the guy, all right? You jab, step around, jab, step around. Then when you get inside, go with both hands.
Okay.
All right?
Why'd you don't tie up your right hand? He's tying up your right hand. Understand? Pull that right hand the hell out of here.
Lou Duver's turn. He's never short of a word or two, old Lou, is he?
Okay? Okay.
And Michael Mora, will he get back into the heavyweight picture sometime soon, I wonder? Talk of him fighting George Foreman again in February. We'll see.
I get the feel that they're not really happy with Whittaker's work in between rounds. They want him to do a little bit more, to vary his work a bit, and to use the jab and to keep on the outside. I think they're worried of him getting in too much of a maul with Jacobs, because I think Jacobs is getting the better of that type of fight.
Yes, all the time it's like that. Jacobs can compete on almost equal terms. I'm sure Eamon Loughran and Del Bryan would give us an argument, but I think you've got to say that Jacobs is the best welterweight around in Britain. That's the second warning for holding for Jacobs. Got to be careful that he doesn't end up with a point deducted sometime soon, Glenn.
That's right. I think the referee was a little bit wary there of Jacobs' elbows. I think he's just lifting them up a little bit. Also, he's been warned for using the head, so he's trying to make this fight a rough fight, and on my book, that's a good idea from the Jacobs camp. They've got to really be, they've got to be tough in there.
Stop punching. Step back, please. Box on. Watch those heads.
But this is a different kind of Whittaker, isn't it, to the fast, elusive stylist we're used to seeing.
Yes, I'm surprised at the tactics of Whittaker. I'm not sure whether he's taking this fight lightly a little bit, but he wants to stand and have a fight, which is not good tactics. Not when you're blessed with the skills of Pernell Whittaker. Again, another solid southpaw jab landing from Jacobs.
As Jacobs went into this fight hoping that somehow Whittaker might be starting to go back a bit. He has been one of those fighters who depends on his reflexes a little bit, and he is 31 now.
Yes, I think the tactics from the Jacobs camp were really to push hard all the way through this fight, to really make him work 3 minutes of every round. And I think they were hoping that if they did that, they could make Whittaker run out of gas. But you wonder when fighters like Roger Mayweather, Jose Luis Ramirez, Greg Hogan, Azuma Nelson, Jorge Paez, the list goes on, and Julio Cesar Chavez cannot make him do that. You wonder if Gary Jacobs can.
Yes, it's a star-studded list on the record of Pernell Whittaker, and that's the size of Jacobs' task here. The bell to start round 6, and this has been a very good challenge indeed so far from Gary Jacobs. Sensible pressure tactics from him, what he has to do against this outstanding world champion if he wants to rip this title away against every odds and every prediction.
Yes, Jacobs is boxing here with a good brain. He's fighting a good sort of fight. He's pushing hard, but then he's being very careful. He's not taking any silly chances, and this is good.
Work your way out. Stop punching. Step back, please. Nicely. Good. Box.
Whittaker looks a lot more effective when he keeps the fight on the outside, but he hasn't really managed to do that very much, has he? Because Jacobs has effectively closed the range on him. Like this.
That's right. I think once or twice over the last couple of rounds, we've just started to see Whittaker find his range a little bit more, and he's looked very sharp with that right jab and that right hook.
Stop punching. Step back, please. Full step back. Full step back. Watch those heads.
There is bound to be tough times ahead in a fight like this for Jacobs. He's just got to keep pushing on. He's got to keep himself focused. He's got to see his arm lifted at the end of the fight. He's just got to keep going for that.
The Scotsman against the Virginian. Sharp work there from Whittaker. And then the old elusiveness when Jacobs tried to counter.
Stop punching. Full step. Step back.
Yes, I think this is the first time in the fight when Whittaker has looked to keep the distance apart from Jacobs and use his speed. And he's certainly using the southpaw jab a lot more now.
Jacobs must sustain this effort, this pressure.
Step back clean.
He's always a very well-conditioned fighter, but for this fight, well, they say he's been running close to 4-minute miles in training. That is absolutely incredible if it's right, because you're getting up near the top athletes.
Get off his head, Pete. Stop punching. Stop punching, step back, please.
Last few seconds of round 6. It's been a sharper round this by Whittaker, maybe his best. Well, we're at the halfway point in this WBC Welterweight Championship contest, and Gary Jacobs has put up a pretty good effort so far, but he may feel that in America, against an American, he needs to open up a pretty sizable points advantage if he's going to get anything from the judges, who are from Australia, Hawaii and Japan, by the way. There's an unusual combination in a world title fight, particularly in Atlantic City.
Yes, and I just began to feel in the last round, Whittaker had changed tactics a little bit, looking to move a little bit more, use the jab, and I thought it was a good round for Whittaker.
There's no doubt that Whittaker is a class act, but it has to be said, in American boxing circles, they do tend to regard him as a bit of a bore. He hasn't really caught on as a headliner with the bigger American boxing public.
That's right. I think on the broad spectrum, a lot of the fans want to see the big punch at the end of it. And at times, Whittaker, who can punch, he is an incredible, skillful fighter. But I think his last 5 fights have all gone the distance. And you know, people don't always want to watch the skills. They want to see a little bit of power as well.
Mind you, I thought they robbed him blind against Julio Cesar Chavez in that draw in San Antonio. That was no draw to my eyes. Whittaker won it.
I certainly agree with you, but it's a brave judge who gives it against Julio Cesar Chavez in front of 60,000 Mexican fans.
Yes, we've been to San Antonio. They do get a bit excited.
They do get rather excited. You see, Whittaker is now just starting to get his range and landing with a good left hand there.
There's 2 good rights there by Jacobs. It's been a really good comeback in the career of Jacobs to get back to this kind of level, because he was brought to America by Mike Barrett several years ago. They put him in with Buddy McGirt, and he was in way over his head at that time, and it was a big career setback. But here he is with a world title chance. But Whittaker is just starting to turn on the style a bit.
Yes, he's just starting to pick his punches more. He's catching Jacobs on the way in, and there's some good counters. So Gary's really got to up his work rate a little bit. I know it's getting to it's at the middle of the fight now. It's getting tough for him, but he's got to keep pushing forward.
Seven rounds gone. Good crowd gathered in here. This is the Jacobs corner with Mickey Duff.
You got to remember, you got to work on the bases. You're nicking the fight, but you got to work on the bases. They're not going to do you any favours. Yeah. All right? If they can nick it off you, they will, and therefore you've got to do the work. Okay?
You've got to just get in and bob, weave, and throw it.
Now, that was interesting there in the Jacobs corner. It's the old fear of the away fighter, isn't it? You won't get anything from the judges, for sure.
They feel Jacobs is maybe just nicking it, but they want him to do more. They know he has to win big here. My opinion differs slightly. I think Whittaker is the one who's nicking it at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Glenn. 7 rounds gone. I think Jacobs has done pretty well to this point, but hard thing to say, and we're saying it from the safe side of the ropes and not expending all the effort but he's got to do even better, hasn't he?
He has to do better. It is a very tough task for him, but he's doing very well here, and I think Whittaker is only just nicking it at this moment. And we're talking about Jacobson with somebody who a lot of people rate as pound for pound the best fighter in the world, so it's no mean feat so far.
Yes, if Jacobs could do this, it would rank up there right alongside Hunnigan's win over Don Curry, John H. Tracy's win over the great Jose Napoles back in 1976. Same weight as well, welterweight in Mexico.
Both of you, no holding. Excellent. Nice professional fight. Stop punching. Step back, please. Both back.
Jacobs trying to stay with this fine craftsman and technician, punch for punch, but it's hard.
Yes, Jacobs is trying to push forward, but with it, he just has the angles. He can just step off and then step to the side, and it just upsets Jacobs' rhythm a little bit, and he has to start all over again.
It's a fight which is a matter of pride as well as cash for Gary Jacobs.
Yes, he's wanted this fight for an awful long time. This is the fight. He says he thinks Whittaker is the best fighter in the division, and he wants to win the title off the best fighter in the division.
Just looking a little marked and swollen around the face, Jacobs. Nothing serious. And rather walked onto the left hand there. Just going through a slightly flatter period after his good start, Jacobs.
That's right, but I think that's due to Whittaker. You see how he's changed styles. He's on the retreat now, using his skills. And Jacobs is just having trouble pinning him down.
Yes, he may just be starting to realize, I think, Jacobs, just why Pernell Whittaker has managed to claim all those famous scalps.
You're locked up. Stop punching.
He's a frustrating man to try to pin down. His trainer says you very rarely hit him with 2 punches back to back.
Step back, please.
Now, this is the old Whittaker, isn't it?
There's a change in style, but a good round there.
9th round coming up, and Pernell Whittaker beginning to pull away, you feel. Whittaker in the black trunks, the reigning WBC welterweight champion.
Yes, the referee just telling him there for a little bit of holding in the last few rounds. And I think it has been at times, it has gotten a little bit messy, but I think there's a little clash of styles because we've got 2 southpaws in the ring here. I'm sure Whittaker is more used to fighting an orthodox fighter, the same with Jacobs. So the styles are just clashing a little bit.
Now, Jacobs did find 3 punches to hit the target back to back that time. You just wonder, really, don't you, with Whittaker, why it took him 6 rounds to go back to boxing in the way he does best.
That's right. I just wonder about his preparation, or maybe he thought Jacobs was not a sufficient challenge. But I think Jacobs has proved otherwise now, and he's putting the pressure on Whittaker. Whittaker content to stay there. He really relies a lot on his speed. Very good defensively, but all just from head movement.
That was a really good little spell of pressure, though, from Jacobs. That's where he needs to pin Whittaker if he can. Up against those ropes, brawl him inside, pressure him, tire him.
Whittaker just messing about there. He almost clambered on the back of Jacobs.
They touch gloves. It was an excerpt from another sport, really, that. Wrestling was the one I had in mind.
You see now, Jacobs cannot sustain an attack, and I think that's why Whittaker's just starting to pick him off at distance. This is going to be a little bit disheartening for Gary. He needs to get into range more. But very difficult to corner a man like Whittaker.
Now Whittaker's trying to turn it on in the last 30 seconds of the round to impress the judges, but there's been some better pressure from Jacobs in this round. It's been his best round for a little while. 10th round coming up. Glenn, how are you scoring this fight so far?
Well, I've got over the last few rounds, Whittaker just starting to pull into a nice little lead. I've got him 4 rounds ahead. I think the early rounds, Jacobs did very well, but he's just, with the change of tactics from Whittaker, he's just started to let it slip a bit.
Stop holding.
Yes, my scorecard reads something pretty similar to that. Whittaker does look generally in control of things at this stage. But contrary to his pre-fight boasts, he hasn't made us go, wow, has he, Whittaker? Far from it.
That's right, he hasn't been able to do that. I think it's been a good performance from Jacobs.
Go up the back of his head, Gary. Work your way out.
Whittaker at times has just laboured. I'm not sure whether the spark has just gone out a little bit. Maybe he's not up for this fight, or maybe Jacobs is just nullifying a lot of Whittaker's good work.
Well, I think they have tended to regard the result of this as something of a formality in America, because they'd already penciled in Whittaker's next date in November. There is talk down the road of a return with Chavez. I don't think Chavez will be in too much of a hurry for that after the first one. And maybe even Terry Norris back at light middleweight, now that Norris has regained his title after all that business with Luis Santana.
Work your way out. Work your way out.
So again, we see some good work from Jacobs in close. That's where he'll be happy to keep the fight there.
Stop pushing. Step back.
Some classy work from Whittaker. And it's good stuff from Jacobs.
Stop pushing.
But again, you see when Whittaker gets a little bit of room, some quality work comes in.
Always using that doubled up southpaw jab to try and work his way in close. Gary Jacobs again holding behind the head, rabbit punching as well by the look of it, judging by the gesticulations of referee Ron Lipton. Just looking a bit tired, Jacobs there, stopping to draw breath. Does start to look as if he needs something spectacular now, Gary Jacobs.
Yes, he's trying hard enough. He's trying to push the fight, but at times the speed of Whittaker is just too much for Jacobs. He can't get close enough and keep that solid pressure on that he really needs to do. He's trying to make the fight rough and tough, but it's just failing a little bit at this moment.
And you can do whatever you want with this guy.
Now Whittaker looks at this moment as if he's in control, as Denny Mancini, now the great old cuts man, gets to work as well. And then Mickey Duff, they're trying every little psychological ploy they know now to try to lift him, but it's now looking a very, very uphill battle for Gary Jacobs. Whittaker has just taken a grip, and the grip has changed into a stranglehold, really.
That's right. I think the corners tell you that. It all looks a little bit calmer. in the Whittaker corner. So some of his work there, that looping left hand, didn't really have his eyes on his opponent there, Whittaker, and he just maybe missed fractionally because of that.
Here's the 11th round inside the last 6 minutes. Whittaker, who nearly always goes the full distance in his fights. He's not a big concussive puncher. He beats you with his rapier-like skills. Really good hand speed. That was a slip. Well, they're counting that as a knockdown.
And I think he's very surprised there.
Well, you could have fooled me.
He tried to get his own punch off, and he was just a little bit off balance, and I'm sure that was not a legitimate knockdown.
It's going to be scored as one. Bet your bottom dollar on that, Glenn. They've counted it to 8. Couldn't see it, I must say. I'd like to see a replay maybe of that.
No, I couldn't see it, but it helps Gary Jacobs, so that's good. So he's got to get a little bit of encouragement from that now, Jacobs. He's got to push on hard.
Whittaker looked absolutely aghast when the count was administered, but you're right. Well, Jacobs, is that going to lift him to a big finish? He needs it. Whittaker again gives the referee an extremely withering look.
Yes, he's not very happy at some of the work in close, but then again, a lot of it is his fault because he's prepared to stand there with Jacobs. Jacobs has been rough, he's been physical, but really that's a good ploy. He's got to try and do that against the fancy skills of Whittaker.
Yes, he doesn't like being pressured like this inside Whittaker. He's giving out 1 or 2 distress signals, and that's only going to encourage Jacobs to do it even more. Oh, and now he wrestles Jacobs to the floor.
Yes, he wrestled him to the floor there, but just previous to that, there was a tremendous left hand that landed from Whittaker.
The styles haven't really gelled very well, have they, in this fight?
No, they haven't, and I think that's down to them both being southpaws, both being good boxers, and it's been a very competitive fight. But I think the southpaw stance from both men has made the fight a little bit messy.
And it does look, at the moment, with time running out, as though the man who calls himself Sweet Pea is going to defend his title successfully. Whittaker in his 38th fight here, and if he does it, this will be his 36th win. He ends the round with a good left hand. Well, Jacobs, I would say, needs the knockout now.
Yes, he's got to. I think he got the knockdown there. We see it there. It was just really a miss from Whittaker. And you see there, he's just mad at going down on the floor. You see, there was no punch that really connected that you'd call a knockdown. But Jacobs will have gotten the point for that. I think it was a Whittaker round, so because of the 1 pound deducted, it's probably a level round.
Let's go out there and put both hands on this boy, all right? Don't take no chances. Fight the way you want to fight, understand? But don't take no chances.
There we are. They think that Whittaker is home and hosed. Don't take any chances. They don't think he's got anything more to do they, in that corner?
No, I'm sure they feel they're on the way to a nice points win here.
I think Whittaker's been rather stirred up by what happened in that 11th round. I don't think he liked having a knockdown recorded against him for the 3rd fight running. It didn't look an authentic one, I must say, without wishing to take anything away from Gary. I'm sure he'll tell us different afterwards.
But really, it's going to take now a tremendous last 3 minutes from Jacobs.
And I'm not sure, really, how much he's got left. He's been looking just a wee bit tired for all his fantastic preparation for this fight. A little bit swollen around the eyes. And that's a sharp left hand from Whittaker. His hand speed blurring. Now he's talking to people at ringside. don't know why the referee wanted him to stop punching then. He was doing some good work inside and finding room to land the punches, Whittaker.
Just you can tell that Jacobs is the more tight of the two. Whittaker is the one who's trying to have a grandstand finish here. Jacobs is looking to hold on a little bit.
Jacobs has given it everything he's got, but like so many others, he's finding that this man has just a few many tools in the box. Like that one.
Jacobs is desperately trying to rush in and land a sweet punch that could finish the fight, but he's just walking onto some nice counters from Whittaker.
Had a good first half of the fight, Jacobs. Don't hold, says the referee to Jacobs. Coming up to the last minute of it now. Well, he's been warning him, and now he's having a point deducted, Gary Jacobs, just to compound his problems. And this time, Whittaker has a broad smile on his face. They touch gloves. Left hand going in again, and the uppercut. Some good punches coming in from Whittaker now, and another sharp left hand. Jacobs trying to come forward, but rather walking onto them.
This is picked the pace up here. This is a good finish from Whittaker.
Oh, left hand. Oh, it's really caught him. The knees buckled. Jacobs is down. Oh, don't say he's not going to hear the final bell. Well, he's up unsteadily. He'll have to get the 8 count. Mandatory 8 count. I'd like to see that in Britain, I must say.
Well, he certainly looks hurty, and he was looking to the corner. He wasn't looking at Whittaker. And again, he's hurt again.
Well, the bell can't come soon enough for Jacobs. He's down again. Now, Whittaker's showboating. The bell ends the contest. Well, I think he was only seconds away there, maybe only 1 punch away from being stopped in the end, Gary Jacobs. I think he was drained more than anything at the end.
Yes, he looked desperately tired as he went into that last round, and Whittaker still looked fresh, and he started the round very good, very fast, and really Jacobs got more tired as the round went on, and Whittaker, a tremendous finish, and Jacobs will be very happy to see the final bell.
There can, I'm pretty confident of saying, be no doubt at all that Pernell Whittaker has retained the title. And poor Gary Jacobs, after such a long wait, the dream looks to have died.
2 very good punches. The left hand coming back with the right. And there, that second left hand, very, very strong. The legs just give way from Jacobs. He did well to get up from that first knockdown. And this is the second one when really he's out on his feet, pushed backwards. And he went over. And at the bell, he did get up. But whether he could have went on from that, had the bell not rang, I'm not sure. He went down very heavy there, Ian.
And the bell sounded in the nick of time for Gary Jacobs. Here's the decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of boxing, we go to the scorecards. Gus Mercurio scores the bout 118 to 109. Tomatsu Tamihara scores the bout 118 to 107. And Takeaki Kanaya scores at 117 to 109 for the winner by unanimous decision, and still welterweight champion of the world, Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker.
Landslide points win for Whittaker. Maybe the scoring a bit harsh on Jacobs, but Whittaker a convincing winner. Here he is with Larry Merchant.
Disappointed, or how disappointed that wasn't scored as a knockout?
Well, not disappointed, but a little. You know, I could have stood the knockout.
I mean, it was a kind of ugly fight for you, wasn't it? And that might have made it prettier.
Well, no, it wasn't really an ugly fight. You can't take anything away from Gary Jacobs. You know, everybody trains hard for the best. So, you know, I give him credit for for all the hard work that he put up. That's why I say I never take anyone for granted.
How frustrating was it in against the kind of mauling, brawling southpaw?
I love that kind of game, you know. I got different, you know. It's not the way. It's not Styles beat fighters. So you know, I just had to suck it up. You know, just see what he had and then be able to all counter it later in the round.
All right, we're going to take a look at those knockdowns at the end of the 12th round. You saved the best for last. Was that deliberate, or did he just leave himself exposed trying to get to you at the end?
It's a matter of time, Larry. You know, I was trying to set myself up for those shots all night, but you know, it was a little awkward at first. And then, you know, once I found him, you know, starting from the body, once I found him, you know, it was no problem from there, you know, and I hit him with everything, and I don't know why he got up.
That's the verdict of Sweet Pea Whittaker. When we come back, we'll hear live from Gary Jacobs in the United States. We'll also have the thoughts of Glenn McCrory and Barry McGuigan here in the studio, and then we'll continue to concentrate on the big one coming from Wembley Stadium as Frank Bruno attempts at last to make the final step from challenger to world heavyweight champion.
I don't really focus about the last chance, and I mean, I'm going in there all guns flying, hungry, starving, and I'm up for it, you know. I mean, this guy is, he's a nice guy in a way, but I don't think he puts his mouth into gear before he talks, you know what I mean? And like what he's been saying has really wound me up, and I can't wait.
So we've seen the reigning WBC World Welterweight Champion Pernell Sweet Pea Whittaker give a very convincing display in Atlantic City and a big margin points victory over brave Scotsman Gary Jacobs. Glenn McCrory and Barry McGuigan watched it with us. Barry, your thoughts on Whittaker?
I think Whittaker is, without a doubt, one of the best fighters of all time. He's an incredibly difficult guy to fight. Sometimes not attractive to watch, but you know, boringly effective at times. And what he does is he frustrates you and he breaks down your concentration and he demoralises you. And if we have a look at the last half minute of the 8th round, just look at the way he slips these punches from Jacob. Jacob trying very, very hard and pulls back out and just frustrates you. And you know, it's almost impossible to keep your concentration. And then if we go to the end of the fight, in the last sort of minute of the fight, he steps up a gear, can just switch up a gear like lightning, and pulls out a cluster of punches here. Hit Gary with a fabulous left hander. He took it very well, got back up again, and unfortunately, this is the same punch again from a different angle, but right on the money. He threw with all his weight, and Jacobs took that amazingly well. It got off the floor, which was, and this is the final sequence of punches here. Left, and he actually run forward. I think Jacobs was more tired than anything else. Hit with some really good punches, and again he's on the move here, and Whittaker just running after him. But an incredibly difficult guy to fight, and almost damn near impossible to beat.
Glenn, when you were watching that performance, did you have the feeling that there is a man out there in the division to beat Whittaker?
I'm not sure. He's very, very good. Obviously, everybody is beatable. There is some good guys in his division. Felix Trinidad and Ike Quarty, who is a very good talent, who's a big puncher as well. And I think that would be, you know, a big welterweight showdown if that one ever happens.
Barry, your thoughts on that?
I think that maybe the only guy out there that could beat him is either Terry Norris, and you have to jump up to light middleweight to fight him, and I'm not sure he wants to do that. They may be able to agree a weight in between, maybe 150 pounds, which would be between welterweight and light middleweight, or possibly Ike Quarty, but they're the only ones out there to beat him. He's 31 years old. Vasquez had him on the floor, so there's a possibility, obviously, with somebody that can really bang, and those two guys would obviously be two really risky fights. But this guy is so hard to beat, you know, I don't know that there's anybody that can actually beat him.
What about the brave challenger, Gary Jacobs? Gary's stayed on in the United States for a well-deserved holiday on the basis of the fight we've just seen, but he's good enough to join us live from Orlando in Florida. Gary, can you hear me?
Yes, I certainly can.
Hi there. We watched the fight with great interest, as we may have mentioned. How deep is your sense of disappointment and frustration now?
I'm disappointed that I never won the fight. It was my choice to fight Pernell Whittaker. And in my heart anyway, I knew if it went the distance, no matter what, if I'd won the 12 rounds, I wasn't going to get it. I mean, in my opinion, and I've not actually watched the fight on the tape yet. It was very close. There was no urgency about the corner. I think.
Sounds like they're still hurting in the Jacobs family quite badly, aren't they?
That's it. I think the fight was won and lost in the last round. I think it was all down to that for me anyway. But listen, I thought it was my decision. He's the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. He's very. I mean, I was against the referee. The referee was on my case the whole time, the whole way through the fight. He kept niggling me. He kept pestering me. They took a point away from me in the 12th round. No, I'm not grumping and groaning. I was in the best shape possibly that I could ever be in, physically and mentally, and I got beat by the better man on the night. I mean,
Gary,
that's it.
First experience of fighting at that level, what are the pressures like for a man going into that sort of environment first time?
Incredible. I mean, it was, I've never experienced anything like that before. I mean, I'm very good at handling these things. And in the dressing room before, you've got the monitors in there, and it's just so big and so vast. I mean, the pressure's on you. It's a world title fight. You're fighting you're in the lion's den, and it's just like, the pressures are amazing on you mentally. It's quite incredible. It's very hard to explain what it's like. I mean, Barry may be able to explain it to you as well, because he's been there himself, and Glenn. But it is quite incredible. It's just you and the other guy.
Gary, you were there. Bear in mind, you took it. I admire you tremendously. You went out there, fought the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, arguably, and you took him on in the lion's den. And he was the star, and you talked about the referee being particularly hard on you. Yeah. That was obvious from the very beginning. Yeah. And I just thought that you handled it. You're a credit to yourself, and I think you stand a more than good chance to fight for the WBO title against Eamon Loughran. And I wish you the best in the future, Gary.
Okay, thank you, Barry.